All right. Well, are we gonna actually talk about chapter 3, or this is the one where he kind of breaks down all these different types of bourgeois and stuff?
Well,
Um,
right before there's
yeah.
one other thing I wanted to say. I thought this was a hilarious little little sentence he had. He said the charges against communism made from a religious, a philosophical, and generally from an ideological standpoint are not deserving of serious examination. He's just like, all your ideas of why this is bad, they suck. I'm moving on. Like he just like, cool. Thanks for addressing all those points. I mean, he kind of does after that, but I just thought it was a really funny way for him to just throw everything out.
So I just invented the mic drop, man.
They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Oh
Hardcore right
man.
there.
Well, Piano Man, why don't you summarize chapter 3? There's a few things I wanted to talk about, but I
Okay.
think we can sort of move through it quicker. Yeah.
Well, I really didn't make many notes on it because what I found out was that his arguments here are kind of against other communist leaders at the time. So what he's doing is showing why his system of communism is better than any other communistic system that's being developed. So all these different little subsections here, I think, are little proofs against each of these different philosophies of communism. So I could be totally off the wall. I don't know if else, anyone else read that.
So what
Or,
you're saying is he's the Apostle Paul of communists.
uh, sure.
I'm just kidding.
Well, so like to that point, right? So he said, but these socialist and communist publications, after he kind of rips them, he says, but these socialist and communist publications contain also one critical element. And this is his critical element. They attack every existing principle of society. Hence, they are full of the most valuable materials to enlighten the working class. So, like, he's like, everything is bad. Like, literally every single principle of society has to go. That is
Yeah,
radical on top of
he's
radical.
trying to be radical though. I mean, intentionally, I
I
think.
mean, he accomplished it.
Yeah.
So the one part of chapter 3 that I wanted to kind of talk about was part B, the petty bourgeois socialism. So to kind of sum it up, really, is it's basically, I think, what we're going through today. He essentially says that the capitalists, the rich, the bourgeoisie, use socialism as a means to prop up morality. No different than what we see currently, right? So actors, people like AOC in politics, even Bernie Sanders, that are millionaires. They have multiple homes. They do all this stuff, but they basically strut their socialism out like, hey, we want to help the poor man. We want to be a spokesman for the poor man, right? But they contradict themselves and they're hypocritical because they don't want to live that way. And I just think it's interesting that he called that part out, and yet that continues to exist probably more than anything today. I just thought it was a relevant. It's just super relevant because I think
It's
that is what we're seeing here in America.
it's kind of like how Jesus called out Pharisees, and yet we still see that today.
It's actually a lot like that. I mean, yeah, it's a lot like that. Okay, so I found this interesting. He said they talking about these people, and again, he's slandering them, as Piano Man said. But he said they still dream of experimental realization of the social utopias of founding isolated. I don't know how you say it, but the phalanisteries or whatever. Scientology does that, which I think is kind of I just like that jumped out to me, like where they just put a bunch of people in a building in these like massive compounds, and like it is a communist society inside there, like just inside that place. And if anything I've learned in any of the things I've ever watched and read about Scientology, it's definitely not good. But I did find that interesting.
The
Hey, they make
one of
bank.
the Yeah.
If Tom Cruise believes it, then so do I.
Hey, he makes a lot of money. I thought it was interesting too. Right before part 3 in here, he talks about how, and this was just another thing that I just gotta laugh to myself, because it says the bourgeoisie tries to attain expression when and only when it becomes a figure of speech. Free trade for the benefit of the working class, protective duties for the benefit of the working class, prison reform for the benefit of the working class. And the whole time I'm reading it, like, yeah, it is. like,
Yep.
like, why are you mad, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he doesn't deny the accomplishments of capitalism. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
He thinks that ultimately it leads to communism. His whole point is not that capitalism in itself is bad; it's that it establishes a hierarchy.
We
Right, and
need
that-
ambitious people and wealthy people to get all the things we want, but then we need to take those people away.
Yes.
And they
He-
better smile about it.
Yeah, it's almost like he thinks that there will be a time that comes where no more technological advances need to be made, and you can basically come to a point where nobody needs to have a specialized anything. They just do whatever, Does that make any sense?
Yeah, like you have a thing that you contribute, and that's it. Because yeah.
That could be
Uh,
efficient. Though. I
What's
don't know, but we can
interesting?
get into that.
Well, I was gonna say that too. So, like, actually, I think there might be some meat to that in the sense that, I mean, I don't know. We might like if we never had another technological advancement ever again, we would be fine at this point.
Yeah.
Like, we might not be better, but like everything will be fine.
There might be some like medical advancements we could still have, but
Right. Oh, I mean, yeah, I
Like
mean,
better medical masks so we can wear them.
yeah.
triple.
Like if they
Triple
could
mask.
just put 3 on each other. Yeah.
But it's one mask. There's
Yeah, but
just
it's one,
three,
yeah.
but there's three
Right.
different colors, so
layers.
people know that you have more than one.
Yeah.
That's right.
um,
People
here's
don't know it.
something.
It don't matter.
That's right. Man, the amount of people I've seen walking down the beach in a mask, blowing my mind.
Not in Florida, baby.
Anyway, it says, he said, in short, the communists everywhere support every revolutionary movement against the existing social and political order of things. How edgy. Like, he just goes in, man. That
I
might
do
even be
like
chapter 4. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I don't know what chapter it's in, but when he says the communists are just this giant mass at this point that has no coherent uh, voice, I'm like, yeah, that seems like all the time though. I don't know. I don't know if that ever solves itself.
Right. But he is arguing that as bourgeois like want to make more money from the proletariats, they have to combine them together and allow them to communicate better, which gives them the power to overthrow them eventually. That is like how the communist system forms, is because the bourgeois or the bourgeoisie give the power eventually to the proletariat. Like for their own good, they think they're doing it for their own good, but ultimately it's for their own ends. So,
well, it is, but then it's kind of a rinse and repeat
you're right.
because
Yeah.
because then the other then you just change their names, and the people who
Yeah.
are like, no,
I
we
agree.
want freedom, are on the other end of it, and then they end up with the power. It's just
It is.
it's
I agree
it's
there.
cyclical.
What do you guys think about the fact that he basically calls, when he talks about the utopian portion of communism, that it is the new social gospel? So we've stripped the family, we've stripped religion. Communism as a group is like the new social gospel. So we talk about sometimes how people turn politics into religion. He's almost admitting that here, like there is no religion, there is no God, or there is no government, but there's communism. That's the gospel. That's the religion. That's the way of life. What do you guys think about him calling it that?
Probably right after that, he said, "Oh, and there's nothing left in this bottle. Let me open another one." But I'll let someone else tackle that.
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. I mean, that's what he's going for. I mean, I don't know what else there is to add. That's what he wants it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not shy about it, and he openly does say this, and this might be in chapter 4. For some reason, I didn't mark out where they switched, but 3 and 4 were super short. But he said the communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Like, does this Black Lives Matter?
And he thinks
Yeah.
no, he legitimately thinks that the only way that communists can, actually proceed is by violent overthrowing.
Yep. That's why. I mean, I'll just give quick. We've already talked kind of, I think, about chapter 4. It's just a quick conclusionary chapter, but I think he has an epic last sentence though. Working men of all countries, unite. I mean, it's in all caps right there. But I was like, that's actually, if you're going to close something out, just read, he nails it. It's in the power of the working people. They got to read all the right ideas. If you do what I say and you unite, we'll change the world. That's what he's trying to say. I don't think
this
that
is.
Can you imagine?
This is Dwight Schrute banging on the podium,
Exactly.
and everyone cheering. That's.
But can you imagine like those words coming out of Bernie Sanders' mouth? Like, what working class person would look at that dude and say, "Oh yeah, he's got it. Yeah, all of us should unite because you're just like us." Oh wait, yeah, that's right.
So I meant to say something about this earlier, but we're kind of getting back to it now. But like we talked about earlier, how he said like anyone who immigrates, that they'll take their property. So I had to look this up because it was confusing me. Like immigrates and immigrates, right? But when it's with the E, it's the people that are leaving. So anyone who doesn't like this and wants to go somewhere else, you take all their stuff.
Right, because there's no handing down of wealth. It's the same thing where you don't give your wealth to your children. You don't take anything with you. You own nothing. You just are.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, here's the thing. I feel similar about communism that I do about, like, just having dictators. Like, in theory, in principle, it's great. But the problem is you have to have an absolutely flawless leader or leaders or set of rules. Like, they have to be perfect. And that just in practice, I don't think that's the thing.
In this system, you not only have to have flawless leaders, you have to have everybody on board. Not just the leaders, like everyone has to be of the same sound mind. I mean, that's why it's called the Communist Confession of Faith. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
it is totalitarianism, like at its finest.
If you look at the whole thing on the economic level, it still doesn't last when you're saying, okay, yeah, this only works if everybody's on board. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay, so the farmer, he's farming and he's making more. Every year he's working harder to get more and more production out of his land, and he puts more and more into it to get that so he can make more money. Okay, now you're in a communist society. That farmer's still working that land, but his wage is never going to change. So what's his point? What's his purpose in working harder?
Well, the good news is it's not his land now.
Right. The idea would be, the idea would be if so let's say you're a farmer and you have, 300 acres or whatever, and you till that land for money. Well, now in the communist system, what they're saying is you no longer have the 300 acres. There might be 10, 12, 15 people that live on your old land that help you with it, if that makes sense. So in his idea, you would not continue to do it because there would be more people on your land doing individual jobs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because he
What
does
did
talk
you
about the
guys?
distribution away from the city and like
That's how,
evenly
yeah.
distributing it throughout. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. What did you guys think about when he said that? Like the practicality of just spreading everyone out.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's what I was
the
saying
whole thing is
before about
completely
how,
impractical.
yeah, that's what I was saying before at the beginning of the show when I was saying that it really seems like this can't work in big populations. That he is almost laying out these have to be smaller communities and the population has to stay small for this to even work. I think that right there sort of proves that.
But simultaneously, he's also saying that the entire world. I mean, it's a globalist communist agenda, right?
Right, but
Like,
that we should keep the population down for this to move.
Right.
In local areas
and the
because
only way you can get the population down is if you give everyone a vaccine that will kill them in 5 years.
Or just share your wife like he wants to. Do
He
you
did
think
that
that's
for
the
his
case
own
too,
deal.
where like he couldn't get a girlfriend, so he just wanted everybody to share the wife?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. He actually didn't have a wife, but he did have a woman for a long time
A
until she died.
concubine.
Yeah, well, they were engaged forever, but they never actually got married or something weird.
shocker.
I could not have actually gone to a better place last week than to talk about this because in Hawaii, for 500 years, however long they were literally a communist society for forever until the Americans, James Cook, whoever it was, came over and like the European and American influence was like, no, you need to have private property. And they couldn't understand it, how it would work. They're like, how does this private property thing work? And then the Americans and Europeans just totally kind of took advantage of them because they couldn't understand it. But they used to just divide. They had a volcano, right, in Maui, and they would divide it evenly based on resources, not based on land size. So each they divided in 4 or 5 different parcels of land. Each had its own little leader, I guess, of the tribe for each of those, and then there was one overarching leader. But they divided it based on resources, and you had to, like, your community lived off of the resources given to it. So that's how they did it, and they didn't understand how not to do it that way. So I thought that was really interesting that they could do it, but it was a small population as well.
As well as a small population of people that had the same, for the most part, ideals, right? So like, it's just like socialism will work if everyone has the same
If everyone's
morals
Christian.
and ideals.
Yeah.
It really would.
We've talked
But
about how socialism can work in like a Christian type society. How like if you
So would
you know what I
communism.
mean? Well,
Really,
true.
if you're a Christian, anything can work because you have good ideals.
Well,
Yeah,
communism works better than socialism. Like one of the things that I figured out reading this,
That's a hot take.
I think
Yeah.
no, because okay, so here's why. Here's why. Socialism is half in. You want to go half into spreading the wealth, but you still want to own things, right? If you're going to do the system where you evenly spread things out, your Hawaii example is a good example of why if you're going to do that, you need to go all in, and communism is all in. That's why I'd say
It's a fair
if
point.
you're going to do the spreading of wealth, do it. Don't do it to where like, but you still keep your resource. That doesn't make any sense.
well, I don't know. I mean, like when you explain, kind of what's going, like what Hawaii did, for example, it's just I guess the communist side of like what early rulers did, like the Roman Empire did that, right? But like they didn't necessarily I mean, it wasn't obviously the Roman Empire wasn't like communist, but like they have one leader, and then under him there were people who ran different regions, and under the guy who ran the regions, he had people that ran like the little towns and cities and stuff. Like, I mean, it. I don't know,
That's
but then the guy
that's
who's
the
the
feudal
leader
system.
is the bourgeoisie.
But that's the feudal system, and that's what he
Sure.
was criticizing. He was criticizing how capitalism. I can't remember where it is, but he says it. Capitalism destroyed the feudal hierarchy. So what you're saying, that's his exact point. The capitalist destroyed that.
And a huge difference is in the Roman system, there is definitely private property. Though in
Yeah,
Hawaii,
no,
there was
yeah,
actually no private property, and that's a huge distinction there, right? Like that's
Right.
his main point about the communism is there's no private property. That's the
yes.
like fundamental point.
Yes. Well, and again, the other big difference with Hawaii is, right, especially way back then, they couldn't really go anywhere. Like they
Yeah.
could, but it was extremely difficult and dangerous to
Right.
leave. So like you just kind of had to fall in line.
So does it kind of prove though that like in a system where if you can't go anywhere, is communism actually better? I mean,
I
is that kind of the
no.
Does
No.
does China actually function well?
For the
no?
In some
oh,
ways.
well, in the hubs it does where there is capitalism.
I think if
I mean,
you're
because China has massive cities, and then the rest of it is like a third world country,
Yeah.
but
which is why they eat aardvarks and bats and crap, and we always get these weird diseases.
on one hand, you can say that in your example again in Hawaii, communism can work. It's not like inherently evil. I mean, there are people who like to say it's like inherently evil. I think it's only that if we had tried to establish it now, where we're literally taking my home from me, that's evil. But if, like JBM said, if it's a culture thing that's established, but here's the thing, places like Hawaii, places like China and Japan that were completely closed off, they didn't even develop until 200 years ago because of this kind of thing. So capitalism allows for advancement and development, but that's the question you have to ask yourself. What's more important? The advancement and the development? Like, you know what I'm saying?
And
Yep.
is that not Marx's entire point, though? Is that he's saying with the development and with industry and this capitalistic system, it removes you from your values. That is his argument, is that you get farther away from being a person with this identity, and you become just a slave wage laborer. Like you just are a slave to the system and you don't have those values anymore and you distrust everything. So that's where he's like, if you live in a communist society, you are have an identity, you're a person who has value to the actual system. So
Or
like that's his entire argument.
yeah, or as we have discussed many times on this podcast, have we become too rich? Because at the end of the day, like as a Christian, I mean, it kind of is. It's extremely. Uh, I don't know if communist is the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use at this moment. Like a communist concept, right? Like sell everything you have, give everything away, and I mean literally go to the next town, go to the first door you see, knock on the door, tell them about Jesus. If they won't take you, go to the next one. Keep going until you find somewhere to stay for the night, right?
Hey,
And those people will take care of you.
hey, have you heard the good news? Jesus is risen.
Thank you.
What
Midnight
just
Mark.
happened?
Oh, The Sopranos. What? Oh, come on now.
I don't remember that reference.
Never mind.
All right. Where do we go from here? I don't know.
Well, the one last thing I wanted to talk about was like I brought up earlier. It was very interesting for me to read in the extra chapters between him and Ingalls that that he said it would be better to be a slave than to be a proletariat because if a proletariat, you're a laborer that owns no property. If you're a slave, you are the property. So because you're the property owner wants you to be alive, fed, healthy, and given shelter, right? So because you are owned by someone, they have a reason to give you a life. Where if you're a proletariat, you have no reason for life. And I just thought that was hilarious and really
So
stupid.
then, in that sense, have we then perfected? Do we live in a communist society right now where they just pretend that we have all these things? Because here's the thing, our current bourgeoisie, right? They don't want you to die. They want you to keep working and keep being a cog in their wheel.
No, I
It's a
understand that.
farce.
Well, no, that's his point though. No, that's just a proletariat. We're definitely not communists because we own private property.
I mean, sorta. They can take it whenever they want.
What you're describing is actually just a part of the capitalist system he describes, where you just become a cog in the wheel. That's what he's saying is the capitalist thing,
Is it just,
not
is
a
it all
communist thing.
disguised though?
No,
I
because
don't
if
know.
you're a communist, you wouldn't feel like a cog in the machine. You'd feel like a part of the big plan. I don't know. That's kind of his argument, though.
Well, no, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, as the proletariat, I don't know. Like, he's saying, like, oh, they want the slave to stay alive, right? But like, also his argument is that basically you are a slave.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, they want you because they need you. They need these
Yeah.
laborers, and they need your wife to also now start working and all this
Yeah.
different stuff.
But you
I
aren't
think that-
actually their property. That's the
I
difference.
think that's the point of the comparison, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's
And they
definitely
need your
interesting to think
wife
about.
to-
Do you think that do you think that like the Communist Manifesto came out and he put Engels' name on it, and Engels was like, "What the heck?" He's like,
No.
"Nah, bro, Marx wrote the whole thing."
No, he said that Engels is the reason why it's called the Communist Manifesto. He said Engels was the one that said we should, call it the kind of that living, breathing thing. you're
Yeah.
talking
So here was kind of the background that I read was that they talked back and forth about these ideas, and they were like, "All right, let's work on this manifesto," right? And it was kind of, I guess, Engels' idea to come up with it, but they got together, and Marx had all of the good ideas, and Engels was like, "Yeah, I mean, let's just go with what you got." Pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Like he's
Engels
like, "You
was
nailed
like, "Hey, bro, I got to go to work." So
it." Oh shoot.
how communist of him. All right, guys. Well, I know we've gone a little over time that I think we wanted to. Do we? Any other thought? Let's one more thought from everybody. Rob, what was your overall thoughts on the read?
I love communism. No, I thought it was. I mean, when I first started reading, I was like, all right, well, it sounds like he's going about this, looking at the past and looking at trying to draw conclusions from things that have happened in the past. And I'm like, okay, so he's trying to be historic about it, but then he just ignores every positive that capitalism could possibly bring to the table, and in favor of this pie in the sky dream that everybody believes exactly the same thing and goes along with exactly what he wants them to go along with.
JBM.
I mean, I agree with the problems that he points out, a lot of them. I just vehemently disagree with his solutions to these problems. I don't think the solution is because, I don't know, at the end of the day, right? Like, the government having more regulations, I feel like causes more problems. But he's like, but the solution is to give the government more power, like complete and utter power. Whereas I don't agree with that at all. I think it would be the opposite to me. But yeah, I mean, to sum that up, I guess I agree with the things he points out as issues. I just do not agree at all with how he says to fix it.
Yeah, the part of it that I was like, all right, I have to dismiss this almost entirely is that he said this can only come about through a violent uprising. And I have to disagree with anything that can only happen through a violent uprising. I mean,
yeah.
but I
Yeah.
do appreciate what he allowed me to think about as far as like if you're working. I mean, I think I'd probably be part of the bourgeois class, but thinking about proletariats that say I'm a manager of, or what, I mean, I'm trying to put this in perspective here, but you want to make sure that they have a value and identity. You want to make sure they don't lose what Marx feels like people lose from a capitalistic system. I want to make sure people maintain their religion, maintain their family values, maintain all this stuff because I do think it might be a trap of the capitalistic system. I don't think he's necessarily wrong there. So I
I agree.
appreciated his
Yeah.
insight there.
Yeah, and for myself, I, and again, I enjoyed reading it because it was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I think Piano Man basically hit on all the points. I think the ideas of the self worth portion of the book and the communist thought process is okay, and I think it's something that we should at least know about. But I do also, similar to what everyone else has said, I do take issue with the conclusions. I don't think you have to get rid of religion. You don't have to get rid of the family. You don't have to take from people to apply these same self worth values. And so I also figured out that people who are socialist, communists today, they're not what Marx wants. He is way different. So when you hear like conservative radio, people are like, "Oh, this person is a Marxist. They're just as radical." No, they are not. And that was interesting for me to find out. But that's me. So Piano Man, this is kind of your thing. So you can give us some more another thought and send us out.
Well, I don't have any more thoughts. I do want to thank Rob for joining us for his thoughts. I mean, it's great to have somebody join us here who read the Communist Manifesto with us. I hope some other people out there did as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah, it was a
And
great
we
time.
we want your feedback on this like a lot. So if
Yeah.
you had listened to this episode, like
And you're an
even
hour and 10 minutes in and
yeah,
you're still listening, we definitely want your feedback.
just even if it's 2 sentences, just send us something. Magic in the Attic Podcast at gmail.com. Just tell us what was good, what was bad. Like, should we keep doing this?
Yeah,
Someone's gonna
Different
this,
send.
topics.
Someone's gonna send Rob sucks.
hey,
2
Is
words.
that going to be
if that's
Rob?
what they say, yeah. Well, we do appreciate having you. Hopefully, you can join us again sometime. Um, Also, if you're sending in that feedback and there's like, oh, I think might really be interested in this topic, well, we'd love to cover it in another mini episode. So
Yeah.
if there's something out there, like we have a lot of fun trying to learn new things. So send us an email, magicintheatticpodcast at gmail.com. This has been the first mini episode on the Communist Manifesto. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Peace.